I would like to introduce up onto stage Greg Rimmer, the CEO of Adwanted UK, as well as Greg's panel, who was also in that room, and they'll be able to give you a bit more detail in terms of what was discussed. Please give them a welcome.
Thank you, Steve. My panel would like to join me, in no particular order. Hopefully some familiar faces for you on stage. I won't go through their extensive bios, otherwise we'd run out of time and not been able to do the debate. So, as Steve said, I've been next door. So we were the after the horse's cart. I won't stretch that analogy further. But Yannick is the star show in here. So those of you who stayed in here and saw Yannick, we were actually next door, but with a very senior selection of agencies, publishers, ad tech people discussing what we should talk about at the Media Leader and Adwanted events over the next 12 months. So we did this last year very successfully. We came up with 3 topics which were voted for by both the senior group, but then also by our Future 100 group as well. And by some strange quirk of fate, they actually agreed on the same 3 things, which were championing talent, and we were very big on championing talent rather than talking about a talent crisis or a talent shortage or anything like that, and that we've done well, and the Future 100 Club is a classic example of that. Trust in media, which meant different things to different people, and Nick is on stage here, and Omar and others spent a lot of time writing about that over the last year, and also sustainability, which we tried to get a tick in that box by going for B Corp, and we're halfway through the B Corp, and I know some people in the room, so people like The Guardian, people like Mobster, people like Total Media, December 19 have also got B Corp status, so that's something we've done. Now, those 3 things obviously aren't going to go away. Yeah, we've not cracked them, we've not saved the planet, we've not got the perfect answer to talent, and we've not got the perfect answer to trust, but we asked for people to try and think about a new thing, and one of the things that came up next door, and actually Yannick talked about when he came in as well, was trust, and a subset of trust. And then also there was some other issues that bubbled up that I wanted to explore further with this brilliant team I've got in front of me now. And one of the things on trust was that whole, again, a competitive publication tried to talk about the agency model being broken, and 75% of this and 85% of that, and 95%, and we're like, I was saying, Nick, when you launched MGM in 1990, was the world clamouring for a new media agency then? And
we hope they were.
But why did you do it? And what are the similarities between what you did then and what's happening now?
Well, we did it for all sorts of reasons, but it was at a time when the world of media was going towards volume trading. Zenith, I think, had just been set up from the foundation agencies, and volume was starting to become, more of an issue in the marketplace. So we decided to use the horrible analogy. We zagged while others zig. We thought that creativity and ideas in media were more important. Getting that right was the key to success. Although the separation of creative agencies and media agencies had already happened, we really tried to glue it all back together again. And some of the relationships that we had with our creative counterparts, like Simon Palmer, Rady Kelly, and others at the time, was the key to success. The best campaigns that we were responsible for, like Nike, like Virgin Atlantic, like the Goldfish credit card, were very much a collaboration between different disciplines sitting around the same table. And that's what clients still need now. They need to reintegrate everything, except they need to do it on a much bigger canvas now, because there are so many more channels that need to be reintegrated. So the task is still the same, and the clients are still looking for better solutions to doing that job. So nothing in that respect has changed fundamentally since 1990 and before.
Yeah. And Karen, you talk about that agencies as professional services. Again, that ever-evolving model. I would argue that media agencies have driven the professionalism of the holding companies, and if you look at the successful independents from the media sector, they are more professional than ever, perhaps. And, do you think there's something in that? Is something in?
I think there are. I think the one thing, and I do talk about this a lot, which I do think they're a professional service. I think they add value to clients' bottom line. I think they're alongside the legal sort of suppliers that they deal with and the professional accountancy sides. I think if I was a media agency, I'm thinking about reframing the cost of your business. And I worry that what a client may do is look at your business as providing £70 million worth of custom because 69 of it is spent on media, but the cost of the actual agency and the professional service they're providing is actually very small. And I think if you looked at the legal companies behind a mergers and acquisition, the client wouldn't go, oh my God, that sort of, Avery and or that legal entity just cost us £200 million, and just look at the cost of what the agency, the professional services cost them. So I think there's a reframing that could be done about the value that's added with the professional services.
And agencies have probably been their own worst enemy there by talking about billings, not revenue.
Well, everyone reports on billings.
Yeah.
You know, the media companies, the media...
It's a bigger headline, it's a bigger number, it's more interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, Neil, from your point,
dangerous.
when Nick launched his Salesforce wasn't around in 1991. I mean, it's gone from being a startup, a tech startup, to now almost omnipresent, in not just in the advertising sector but elsewhere. I mean, how does Salesforce regard the advertising sector? What bucket do we fit into?
Yeah, 150,000 customers. We have a big business, but at the core of all our customers' kind of purpose is growth. And I think advertising agencies are a catalyst of growth. I mean, you have to believe in growth to be in the industry because you're looking to sort of drive ARPU if it's a consumer brand or new sales if it's a consumer brand. It's always about sort of incremental gain. But I think at the heart of that, when we look at working with either agencies or the rest of the media companies, we empower sales, we empower marketing, we empower service. Any consumer touch points that a brand might have, we are there. And in that essence, the complexity that Nick was talking about, and is very much there's trust at simplicity, and we go into businesses and we actually create simplicity out of very complicated businesses across sales, marketing, and service. I think if you look at Salesforce's success, I mean, our retention rate of customers of those 150,000 is around 93%. There is something that we do that actually means that actually we're driving value for those customers we work with. And I think at the heart of it, it's complexity over reducing that complexity and putting technology and processes right at the forefront of the people who use the tech.
Okay, and Yannick talked about that, Rachel, in the last. So, making the complex simple. He used a Da Vinci quote, which I can't remember, but making the complex simple. Yeah. Is that something which, again, Neil talked about that's what Salesforce has an aim for? Do you think that we as a sector, not just agencies, but publishers as ad tech companies, have we failed to do that well enough? Is that part of the trust problem?
I think it is. Look, it's a really complex ecosystem we're delivering. But look, ultimately, as agencies, we're there to be the business partners to CMOs. And it's about actually how do we make sure that we are making that complex simple for them? Because actually, at the end of the day, how do we help CMOs prove value to their board? And because actually, at the end of the day, that's what we're here to get people to make a decision or act differently and buy products. And that's what we're here to do. So I think when we do make there's so many parts of the ecosystem, going back to that agency model, we've got to be the intersection between that and actually at the end of the day, making sure that we're delivering to CMOs to prove value back to their board, because that's why we're all in this game. At the end of the day, we're just here to work with marketing teams and be their business partner. So whatever way that is, and I suppose really the word before that should be trusted business partner. And you are more of advisors as much as you are suppliers, and I think it's that relationship, isn't it, that we need to create, which is obviously Salesforce can do the same way that we even had in the room today. Actually, who've got closer relationships with clients these days? Is it agencies or is it actually publishers? ad tech. You know, actually that was a...
Nick from Pinterest talked about, again, they've gone from being supplier to business partner. Does that, again, you're not in the agency world anymore, again, that when Google did it, everyone was scared of it. When Pinterest do it, do you feel that's a good thing?
Look, at the end of the day, you know, you can have different partnerships. And my mind is, you know, there's a triangle between you've got your client, you know, the publishers and the agency and all working together, because at the end of the day, you should be all working for the same result. The problem and the complexity comes in if you're all measuring different things. So that's you've got to all be working towards the same goals. That's what I'm saying, we're all in this game for the same end results. So it's that collaboration and that complex. So we add complex at every single part of the journey, don't we? That is the problem. How do we simplify it? And agencies really should be able to do that.
Yeah, and the trouble again, Nick, the trust piece can that be, yeah, if not turned around, it may not need turning around, but can it be improved by added focus on measurement?
It should be. If depends whether you're talking about trust, consumer trust in media, or advertisers' trust in their media supply chain partners, and they're two sides of the same coin. My view, for what it's worth, is that if this industry was much more focused on effectiveness measurement than it is at the moment, that's how we start to regain consumer trust and trust in the media supply chain. So this takes a bit of a leap of the imagination, but if clients were sort of saying, hey, what really matters in terms of building my brand through advertising, if they believe it's an environment where the consumer responds better to advertising rather than being bombarded by it, if they understand the power of creativity, if they understand the power of a well-resourced channel versus social media sometimes, for example, if you take effectiveness seriously at a higher level, then you start to regain the trust of the consumers. Then once you do that, you also need supply chain partners, and I use the word supply chain deliberately. It's a horrible, but business partners. If you do the first one and you have people within your commercial partnerships, media agency, ad tech, publishers, broadcasters, whatever, and they're all committed to the same thing, then you start to get a really good framework for solutions, and that resolves both sides of the equation. Are we there at the moment? Bloody hell, nowhere near it. But if that's where we start to go, then I think we start to solve both sides of the equation.
Okay, thanks. Neil, you spent a lot of your career working for News Corp. Craig and Ozone have just been on stage with News Corp and Telegraph. Again, Nick's utopian world of everyone wanting the same thing measured. Salesforce help with simplifying life, but when you're at News Corp, obviously having the same measurement as, I don't know, Fox or Google or someone else was always going to be counterintuitive, wasn't it? Weren't you looking for measurement, to a point made in the room next door, something which suited your needs? And how do we get to Nick's utopian world, do you think?
Well, I worked at News Corp a long time ago. 5 years ago. In the world of media, that's a long time ago. And we were competing. Clearly, there's always competitive edge. But when I moved to an e-commerce business, so I went to a startup in the States and stuff, we started looking at incrementality as a metric, and that being the incremental gain on anyone we would sort of interact with. And that became our pricing model, to be honest. We build on net new growth for customers. So when I went back to News Corp, more of a consultancy role, we started looking at actually that data sets. The objectivity of what we were trying to do was all about the incremental growth you can get from a certain data set. So I think the answer is the metrics of how we traded, which is kind of what you're alluding to, have been replaced by the metrics of actually what we own. And I think Ben was talking about sort of the sovereign data and that kind of stuff. At Salesforce, that's where we lean in on, because we actually believe that all customers we have should be customer companies. In other words, they should be customer-centric, not just in espoused values on some mission board or whatever, but actually how they operate with their consumers, their customers. And all the data around those consumers and customers is the thing that actually is really important. So I know that sounds like a long long answer to a kind of a perler of a question, but it is objective as opposed to subjective, and I think that helps businesses simplify.
Yeah, I get that. Nick, I'll come to you. Karen, you first. Again, you've again done lots of things, but I know you've got a view on this from a sort of an industry-wide perspective.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about making things, it's the simplicity, making things more simple for clients, which is ironic because I think we're an industry that, since we're in communications, we make things really difficult. We keep changing even the names of what measurements are. So we need to have a good look at ourselves and make sure that we are trying to be very simplistic with our language for customers, because I think the challenge we've got, and in this complex world, which is actually where we should be shining, you and the old measurement of something like reach is really easy to get. You know, there's so many different plans you could look at and just go, actually, they all could, on paper, do the same thing, but there'll be the really smart ones, and it goes back to what Yannick was saying earlier about planning being really important, because good planning will create the plan that cuts through the best. And I think that's coming back to this simplicity model, with measurement, with language, with everything. So customers, then your agencies or your clients will trust what you're saying. But it's all a bit of a virtuous circle. But I totally agree with Nick, which it comes back to what are you trying to achieve? So, I mean, sometimes it still astounds me when I look at some of the client briefs, and there's not, I really can't tell you what the objective is.
I had a mustard brand that said they wanted to revolutionise their brand through mobile, which was always like, I'm like, okay, it might be.
Yeah.
I started giving them advice, and I'm like, yeah, and that's my favourite way. Go back to your decent ad agency, write the brief again. Yeah, Nick, you're one of the very few people here that I can say you've been in this business longer than I have. So
thank you for drawing attention to my age, Greg.
Yeah, no, that's I say it's a good thing. So we are survivors here because we have evolved. We have evolved, but we haven't. Again, a bit like trust, a bit like talent. We haven't. These are issues that, I mean, effectiveness has been around since my first day in an ad agency, and probably your first as well. Why haven't we cracked it? And what can we do over the next 12 months which will make a difference?
Okay, well, you asked me earlier on what was different when we set up Manning Gottlieb all those years ago, long time ago. What was the difference? And I talked about creativity, I talked about ideas and all that sort of stuff. And in 1999, we hired our first head of effectiveness, Sally Dickerson. This is 25 years ago now, because we believed that proving outcomes was incredibly important. So I've been on this trail now for a long time. What I'm talking about here, though, is about effectiveness of the total marketing communications mix, because advertising is only part of that. We have so many other ways of building brands now, whether it be social media or influences or CRM, point of sale, retail media networks, you name it. So if you're doing the marketing job properly, you need to measure all of your levers, and that can include sales channels and all sorts of other things as well, PR and so on and so forth. That's where you should begin. And so I think that the problem we have is that the industry isn't focused enough on effectiveness measurement. And people start to look for common currencies and ways of gluing that all together. And there are some common currencies that make sense. And ozone will be one of the, not ozone, sorry. Origin. Sorry, Damon. I got my O's mixed up. Could have been anything. Oranges, whatever. Anyway. Yeah, absolutely. No, the point is, though, is that effectiveness measurement is extremely difficult because you've got many channels and they're all measured differently. Some of them self-report, like walled gardens. Some are open web, which are, well, arguably slightly better. But the other problem is the lack of transparency that exists in the media ecosystem, because you can't do effectiveness measurement properly unless you have transparency, because you get good data from over here, no data from over there, crap data from there, and unless you've got transparency of the money and the data flowing through the systems, and it is data and it is money, it's money in and it's audience out and then results. Unless you've got those, you can't do effectiveness measurement the way it should be done. So the industry, if it wants to take effectiveness measurement seriously, has to become more transparent. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And that doesn't just apply to the advertising industry, it applies to all of the other brand communications channels that exist out there. So
Neil, I'll come to see whether Salesforce has got a solution to that, or something in MPD or even a Neil idea to sort that out. But Rachel, Ian, we were talking next door of two things we didn't talk about actually. One was AI, which we've managed not to talk about. We'll talk about again now. Saying next door, I think about 90% of people said it's going to have a positive effect. So we'll stick with that made-up stat. Second, we didn't talk next door about Origin at all, which Nick's just mentioned. I mean, our old colleague Tom George is herding cats at the moment, trying to get Origin to. Does it stay? Because what Nick's talking about is that being that is a good thing because it's going to have, and it's only video for a start, and it's struggling to get off the ground. Have you got a view on that, or is there what is the silver bullet in terms of
that's the problem
mass media measurement?
Well, I think Origin it's a political hot potato, isn't it? And I don't envy Tom George, and I think it's consistency in metrics was something that Duncan at Bloomberg brought up, and if we could have that from the top of the funnel through to the bottom of the funnel, that is the silver bullet. We haven't got it right now. I think going back to what you were trying to do next door with the rowdy rabble was actually what should we talk about next year as media leader? And I think it's the whole thing around effectiveness and measurement is really it's proving it's proving the value of the CMO back to the business in terms of actually, if we're effective, then we can spend again, and then we can continue to build brands, and we will continue to have this wonderful industry that we work in. But how do you make it sexy to the future 100, for example? How do you make it that actually this is something that we should all really care about? So one of the words that Luke from Essence MediaCom said, but actually rather than actually effectiveness and measurement, it's actually about impact. So what is your impact on your brand? What's your impact on your EBITDA? What's your impact even in culture? Like, look, we work in a really amazing industry where we are, you can affect big movements. You can affect, so it's a bit more actually, so effectiveness is a really huge part, but actually what's sexy about that is we are really impacting on culture, and how do we actually talk about that more, that actually then the measurement piece then will flow through, because there's no point in doing something unless you can actually measure the impacts of it. And I think that was sort of where the conversation was going, but
I'll throw anyone who wasn't next off the first session, or indeed was and has now thought about it. So that making a clarion call of creating an impact rather than measurement, or effectiveness, which are, as Nick and I have said, it's been around forever. But if we give measurement a rebranding to something like creating everything we do must create an impact. Does that resonate with the audience? Anyone got a view on that? Anyone want to comment on?
Whilst you think about it,
I guess would that be isn't that business impact? So
should be. Should be.
Yes. It is. It's our.
Well, in fact, Rachel and I were both at Zenith when we relaunched as the ROI agency 20 years ago.
But they are different things, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because you've got business effectiveness, which is what I've been talking about mostly, and you've got other forms of impact. That can be impact environmentally, societally, and so on. So let's not confuse those two things. If you like, you can call them all impact, but let's not say they're the same thing. So I actually like the word impact. I think it's a very, very good word to be talking about, because it takes you beyond just business effectiveness into other areas, which are also important.
Well, it's the creative impact, isn't it? What's a creative impact? As you say, like return on, because Ali Hannan was in there, that, you've got return on investment. What about return on inclusion? Ben from Pink News was saying, well, actually, because also the other thing is about effectiveness and measurement. It takes you, all about performance then versus actually brand, because actually the impact of a brand is way more than last click on a
Rachel, nothing new in this world. This is exactly the debate we had in 2003 at Zenith. And everyone, Jerry and people, let's make it return on ideas. Let's make it return on find another I word, because I don't want to have to just show short-term investment return. I mean, Karen,
why are we obsessed with it though? Why are we obsessed with this one measurement? Well, we keep.
Impact. Let's talk about impact. I mean, impact is a word that the cinema industry has used forever.
We're the best at it.
Yeah. You are. Cinema first, isn't it? Think cinema first.
But again, Benjamin from Pink News, or who's else? Richard from Clearshot. So where an individual media owner is trying to make a sales impact, and I think Duncan sort of everyone asking for a brand lift. So a planner to try and improve management asks for a brand lift campaign on a single campaign. Can you get your head around an industry-wide push towards a clarion call for everything you do must create an impact? Does it need to be a single measurement like Origin's trying to do?
I hope we would. I think we flip-flop as an industry, and I take Nick's point. We flip-flop between, we know that we can create impact, we know we can create movements, we can create people just to do something different because of the way we've persuaded them, and then we're obsessed about this measurement and how do you get one currency, and how do you get, so we seem to flip-flop between one and the other. And I think that, I've been in the industry as long as you have, Greg, and it's always been the case where people would say, wouldn't it be great if we could have just one cover and frequency? EMAP advertising was started because they brought 3 companies together to provide a solution across, radio, TV, magazines, digital, and yet we don't quite manage it. So then we go back to, God, that's really difficult, let's try and do the impact thing. It feels like we've got to decide what we want this industry to be famous for, and if we can't get a 10 out of 10 on the measurement side, perhaps 7's okay.
Well, hang on, sorry. But
Neil, I gave Neil a brief about 5 minutes ago.
We've moved on a bit.
That role of impact. So you talk about growth, Salesforce measuring growth, and that works for all customers. I used to say CMOs become the chief growth officer, and you'll get closer to the CFO. Is there anything that Salesforce are doing today or planning tomorrow which will help around this impact thing, or something else? I've talked about before is M&A. Are you seeing M&A either in our sector or your sector, which is going to make things come closer together rather than more dissipated?
I'll try and take the first question first because I think it's an important one. In that debate we had, I took a very lateral view of impact, and I took it to business value drivers as opposed to not, what we were just touching on there. I don't think the two things are binary. I think they coexist. It's just the alignment of those metrics we're talking about to feed into business value drivers. The reason I say that is going back to that simplicity point earlier, and your brief about have we got a solution for the ecosystem? No, we haven't. I don't think that's where we play. We are way more pragmatic, and we're way more focused on different companies and the business side of siloed data, not necessarily solving the problem for the ecosystem or the industry, but let's start where our customers want. Their data is in silos, especially when you've got years and years of M&A and consolidation and then merger, and then let's bolt this on, bolt that on, and it's causing terrific inefficiencies in that business operating, but actually it's stopping those business drivers becoming a real thing. So where we play is try to sort of consolidate, but at least align data sets, bring it all in together. I mean, the average enterprise has about 1,000 apps in it to run across employee, finance, everything like that. Only 29% of those are actually integrated. So you've got almost 70% of all this data not flowing. So you can't get to that value driver conversation we want to have about impact because we need to stitch that up in the first instance. But it's a great ambition.
So you're preaching simplicity, which I think we'd all agree with. It's life has got more complex, but we need to understand simple outcomes. So Nick, you're trying to get in. We've got about 2.5 minutes left, which I'm sure you could take all of that up
and more.
So
I won't.
That what you're asking is by saying it's got to go beyond advertising. It's got to be more than that. That naturally makes it more complex. What Damon talked about was business outcomes. Is there, again, for people in this room, for our commercial media audience, what do we do?
Well, the journey of 1,000 Miles, this is a single step, isn't it? All the old cliches apply. I mean, the fact is that we're not in that industry at the moment. The industry does not work on the basis of effectiveness measurement. It's more to do with trading and issues related to that, if we're being honest about it. I know we'd all like to think it's about strategy, and a lot of it is, but trading drives so much of the behaviours, and it drives so much of the revenue and the profit. So that's maybe another subject for another day, another column. But you know, if I think about coverage and frequency, I kind of go, yes, you need all that sort of stuff for trading, but that's not got a lot to do with effectiveness measurement. The truth is, effectiveness measurement is all about, I love the expression business value drivers, that's what we should be looking for. And some of those things can be sustainability or inclusivity and so on and so forth. Some of them can be the way that data science uses AI to measure the business contribution of different channels. But you've got to start at the higher level and then it flows down. And there just simply isn't enough effectiveness measurement in client companies yet. And if there were, and I would hope there will be, then everybody here will be participating in that in 5 or maybe 10 years' time. I think AI will be a facilitator of that. But you know, things like, I'm going to say ozone again, but I mean origin, are a small piece of the jigsaw of that. But it is a bloody big jigsaw puzzle that you need very smart people putting together, because the measurements, cross-media measurements, will never exist to the extent that they used to. And you're having to piece together bits of research, first-party data, third-party data, second-party data, zero-party data. You're having to use machine learning to bring all those data sets together to provide solutions. I'll stop talking now.
Yeah, you did. You right. You didn't take the whole time, but you took. Yeah,
I know. I'm sorry.
Over 30 seconds.
I don't do brevity.
No, again, and I think what we've done both next door and here, and I'm sure we'll do over the next couple of days as well. There is no silver bullet. There is no simple answer. Simplicity should be our aim. But I remember 20 years ago telling the CMO of Toyota, he was like, I've got one digital guy. Should I get another digital guy? And I'm like, no, you should put that one and put him in the centre of the room. And maybe 20 years later, what we're talking about, we talk about having measurement rock stars, and how we and if we call them, the rebranding of that around impact. That might be one of the ways we do it. So encouraging our clients to, promote their measurement person or employ their measurement person, but also matching them with that investment as well. So, and that goes for media owners as well. Go on, last word, Karen.
I just think it's just make sure you understand what's important to measure, rather than measuring everything.
Well, do we like business value drivers?
I've written it down.
I like business value drivers because it is about the
I'm going to trademark that, Neil.
Impact of that measurement. Because we can measure a hell of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and we do measure. That's the issue. We measure too much stuff at the moment.
So understand what is really important to measure, which comes back to understand your objectives in the first place.
And trying to get it from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel, and from the CEO down to the marketing assistant.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, we are out of time, as always happens at these things.
But we have solved it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. We will still be talking about it in 20 years' time, that's sure, but hopefully from a better place than we are today. Please put your hands together and thank the panel for introducing us.